We were a bit like soulmates.
Yeah.
There was something that connected us. You know, sometimes you meet someone, you go, yeah, he's proper, and I don't know, it just felt right.
The rifle was raised at point blank range. I watched helplessly as my mate Tony was blasted away, his body mutilated inside the Range Rover. He never had a chance to defend himself. I sat and shivered in the darkness. It was autumn 2007, and I was watching the film about my life, Rise of the Footsoldier. All the emotions came flooding back. Director Julian Gilby had arranged a special preview for me at a private cinema in Soho. I later attended the glitzy premiere with the stars, but I was relieved that I'd had the chance to see it beforehand. I was numbed by the end of it, drained, and I felt like I just wanted to lie down on a settee and go to sleep. I couldn't speak. It hit me so hard. The last third of the film, where Tony and the others go to their deaths, brought back the bad memories. I lost my best friend. He was my mucker and my soulmate. He was the older brother I wanted. He looked out for me. He cared more about me than himself at times. No one will ever know the Tony Tucker I knew. We had some fucking mad conversations. We made these mental pacts up, like if anyone hurt him, I'd kill them, or the other way around. And I never did that with anyone else. That's what I couldn't say after the film, that if I died, he'd have done the same thing for me. I looked at Ricky Harnett, the actor who played me in the film, and he was the same. We'd become great mates, and I knew he didn't want me to think he'd let me down. He represented me with a passion. I wasn't just another role to him, and that makes him a deeper man. But more than anything, the film was my way of keeping Tony alive and remembering our friendship. He's immortal now. If I want to remember me and Tony when I'm old, I can stick my DVD on and remember our nutty, scatty lives and bring back how we met and how we were. The idea for the film came from my mate Terry Turbo Stone. I'd given him a copy of my book and he rang me a couple of days later. This would make a blinding film. Terry had worked with William and Julian Gilby on Rolling with the Nines. I was involved all the way. When they cast Ricky, he came to meet me rather nervously. When I first saw him, I had reservations because he was so much smaller than me. We went out to the pub. He impressed me when he said he was going to go to the gym and bulk himself up. He worked out for 6 or 7 weeks and bulked up by 2.5 stone by the time the filming began. That night we ended up at a strip club and he got completely drunk. He stayed over at mine and the next day I had to get up early for some work, collecting some money for someone. With only a few hours sleep, he was completely groggy. And it wasn't until I saw him act that I realised that in fact he was taking on board the way I moved and spoke. It was uncanny. My mates came along to be in the football scenes as extras, and I gave them a big speech before we filmed the scene where West Ham are cornered by Manchester United. I said, think it's an actual game, just do what you do. So when it came to action, we charged down so aggressively that the stuntmen were shitting themselves. They really thought we were going to batter them for real. Later, one of my mates broke his wrist climbing over the fence in the stand. You can see it in the film. That's method acting for you. Julian kept close to the real story most of the time, but there were a few things changed around because they worked better that way on screen, like the massive fight on the tube train. In reality, it was us in the ICF who ambushed Millwall, and I didn't get hit in the head with a hatchet. That happened another time, but they did a good job of recreating my younger, happier days. It was harder to go along to watch one of the 3 alternative endings being filmed. They'd got the Range Rover spot on. I vividly remember driving around in the real one with Tony and Pat. Fucking spooky. The makeup crew had the autopsy pictures on the wall in their van. I'd never seen them before. It brought a lot back and I started feeling angry, remembering things that I'd buried deep in my mind. I started having nightmares again. I didn't know it, but I was changing and Anna sensed it. I was getting niggly and jumped down her throat about little things, but luckily it passed. The film was on a short schedule and everybody worked at 100 miles an hour. They were all focused and really dedicated. They made the film in 2 months for 1.3 million, and with all the modern technology in filming, they got it in the cinemas within 7 months. That was a record, and I was proud of their achievement. After the private screening came the premiere of the movie in Leicester Square in the West End. It was a big event. There were stars there, press, cameras, friends and family. I was very conscious of the fact that Anna, who had never talked about my life, was finding out about it in the most public way possible. She had to walk out with me afterwards into the lobby, and I could feel the burning sensation of everybody looking at us. My sister was there crying. I felt I was portrayed fairly and truthfully. I'm proud to stand by the film, and I said so in an interview they did with me for the DVD release. They also asked if I'd had any regrets in my life. I said I did, not saving Tony. But although these memories are always there, these days I'm more confident. I've got my old spark back, and I'm more realistic. I don't let many people down in my life now. I work with people, and I won't get as close because I've been hurt and let down so many times. I'm loyal and give my heart. I'm still passionate about football. I'm going to see West Ham play whenever I can. But it's so much more relaxed than the old days. Now I take my wife and young son. I'm making a new start now. Not saying I'm an angel and I'm doing fucking charity work, but it's new times. I don't mean to go back into that world. Of course, every now and then a door opens and you get dragged back in. Just a simple phone call because people know who I am and I'm back in. My mobile goes and I wonder, is that going to be a good or bad call? That's just the way my life is. I'm bound to end up in the middle of something. There aren't any endings in my life. In early 2008, I was part of a documentary for Sky One called Gangsters' Lives. It was a chance for people to see another side of me. The camera crew followed Anne and I as I took her to visit Tony's grave for the first time. It was my way of introducing her to my life, my past, and to get her to meet my best mate, my bruv. And it was the first time I'd taken somebody else along to the cemetery. Rise of the Footsoldier has done really well, and it's just come out on DVD, selling 100,000 copies in just 2 weeks. It's going to Europe and America, so who knows what's around the corner. There are still plenty of stories to come. Carlton Leach was once one of Britain's most feared gangsters. He ruled the East London underworld with fellow hardmen Patrick Tate, Anthony Tucker and Craig Rolfe as leader of the notorious Essex Boys, but their reign of terror came to an abrupt end in December 1995. Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were blasted to death in a Range Rover in a drugs ambush, and in that moment Carlton, now 48, went from feared gang boss to last man standing. He should have been in the Range Rover too, but decided against going because of heat from 2 murder probes. Now, the story of his near miss has been made into a movie starring Ricky Harnett, Craig Fairbrass and Terry Stone. Rise of the Footsoldier, out next month, charts Carlton's life from football thug to feared crime boss. Last night, in an exclusive interview with the Daily Star Sunday, he said, "I didn't know at the time, but Pat, Craig and Tony dying was my wake-up call. I had 2 choices. I could die like that, or I could live to tell the story, and that's what I'm doing." The film is the real story. It began when Carlton became a founder member of West Ham hooligans, the intercity firm. Muscle Carlton, played in the film by Ricky Harnett, recalled, "I liked violence. It started with football violence, then moved on. If there was a problem in a club, I was hired to sort it out. I became a head doorman, then I started doing my own security, and from there I started knowing drug dealers, then looking after the drug dealers. Then you get muscle money, debt money, it snowballs. That's why the film is called Rise of the Footsoldier. I was a young kid and I was a soldier. Then I became a general, a head of a firm." Carlton's fearless reputation brought him to the attention of ex-world boxing champion Nigel Benn, who hired him as a minder after he was rumoured to have been targeted by underworld hitmen. But the gang was doomed by its own appetite for drugs. Tony Tucker had become a close friend. But Carlton said Tony was in awe of Pat Tate, and they started getting really heavily into drugs. By the end, the drugs took over everything, and they weren't thinking straight. If you've got dangerous people taking steroids and heavy-duty Class A drugs, you're going to see them explode. If you go to those extremes, it's the grave or it's prison. In the end, it was a fallout with a rival gang over a dodgy drugs deal that led to the 3 deaths. The gang used a bogus deal to lure the men to a secluded spot in Retton in Essex where they were ambushed. The killers were brought to justice in 1998. Drug barons Mickey Steele and Jack Womes were given 3 life sentences for the murders of Tate 36, Tucker 38 and Rolfe 26. After they died, Carlton revealed he was close to being in the Range Rover himself and said, "My main concern was Tony. I wanted to get him out of it, but people had died in the clubs where I'd been doing security, so I was under some heavy heat myself. He asked me to come out, but because of the problems they got Craig to drive. I would have been in that car." Dad of 6 Carlton has now gone straight and owns a debt collection business. He lives a quiet life in Essex with wife Anne. But he said, "I will never forget Tony, and I still visit his grave to talk to him. By making this film, I hope I can keep his memory alive.